What's up, guys? This is Simon. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about how the real estate market went from super hot to cooling to potentially crashing because of a major issue that's coming up with the eviction moratoriums. In fact, there have been more homes on the market, there have been less offers, and in certain markets across the US, it feels like even though the interest rate is low, the real estate market is cooling because homes are more available and are staying on the market for sale a lot longer. So before I get into this video, I always ask and remind you guys to hit that like button for me and subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. I appreciate that and it keeps me motivated, so show some love and support. Let's get into this video. All right, so as you guys know, I did a video where the real estate market was cooling down. But what's worse and what has recently come into the news is the fact that over 750,000 households are possibly facing evictions if the moratorium or the eviction freeze is not extended. That's right, folks, 750,000 households. That is an incredible number, and what that is going to do is cause a major crash potentially in the real estate market. Now, on top of that, not only have the 750,000 households currently in eviction process, it's going to tie up the legal system because all these landlords have not been getting paid, and the landlords are due over $17 billion in rental payments that they have not been able to collect because of the pandemic moratoriums that have happened with the rental freeze and the mortgage freeze. So Goldman Sachs actually estimates that about 2.5 million to 3.5 million individuals are significantly behind on rent or mortgage, which collectively adds up to about 12 to 17 billion dollars. That is an incredibly staggering amount that the banks have not been collecting, that the landlords have not been collecting, causing this potential real estate bubble to not only slow down but crash. So on top of that, with the moratoriums or the forbearance period completely ending and banks starting to resume payments, collection efforts, and foreclosures, we may actually see a lot more properties on the market, and those properties are going to be selling for much less than they have been selling in recent times where everyone is bidding. Now, this may not affect every single area in the country. For example, Silicon Valley probably would not be affected. Hot areas in Los Angeles are not going to be as affected as much. Manhattan probably not going to be affected as much either. However, in other areas, rural areas in the country or areas where the tech boom is not as robust, etc., you are going to see some big potential problems because a lot of people still are out of work, and with the government not assisting the foreclosures, it's going to be an issue with people not being able to pay rent and finally being forced to be evicted. Goldman Sachs also estimated that about 1.3 million people are going to be forced for eviction notice within the next 2 months. That is staggering. So the landlords have been really waiting for federal government to end their eviction moratorium, and now that they have been denied an extension by the Supreme Court, it is going to start happening, and they have been in line. In fact, real estate attorneys, eviction attorneys are going to be extremely busy pushing a lot of people out that have not been paying and possibly don't even plan on paying back the landlords. There's a big protest where rent should be free as we get into a socialistic idea of free rent and people deserve to live for free, etc. In San Francisco, I see it all the time. I see signs where free rent is a human right, and I don't believe it to be so. I believe you should work for what you have and you owe what you agreed to pay. So in that regard, this is going to be a catastrophe if a lot of those individuals cannot find another means of income to pay back these landlords, and if the landlords cannot find money to pay back the banks. This is a huge wake-up call for not only tenants, but also landlords, but also the federal government and the state and local governments. The federal government has advised the state to use some of those funds they allocated for these type of moratoriums and these type of evictions to help tenants and landlords out. So the state has dragged their feet, especially in California, to carry out plans to help the citizens of the state out with all of those relief grants that they have offered from the federal level. So hopefully the state can get it together, and instead of the federal government taking over and having these forbearances, the state could step up and use some of that grant money to help those in need. So the federal government has distributed billions of dollars to the states to help out its citizens, and only about 11% of those billions of dollars, and we're talking high billions, have been approved and have been released to the people that are waiting for assistance, which is incredible. What is happening with that money? You raise a question. Where is the money?
Where is it? Where is it?
It's
Where?
Show me the money!
And honestly, I haven't heard of the state publicizing too much that we can help you out with rental. And this is also causing a concern, because if they can't help out with rental, how are people going to know that there are such programs to assist? They know about the moratorium freezes, but they don't know that the state has more power to give them money to help pay their monthly rent or their mortgage fees. So the moratorium was supposed to protect renters through October, but the Supreme Court has said that they are not going to be extending it. It's unconstitutional. And if Congress does not act on it, that's it. October is the deadline. So we are talking about 1 to 2 months away from a mass eviction. And with a mass eviction, you're going to see some potential huge declines in real estate. You may also see rental market go back up, where people are losing their homes and they may be renting again versus paying those mortgages. Now, here's the big problem. A lot of individuals that have been saving up the money from their rent or their mortgage did not necessarily save that money to pay it back when the time is due. With poor money management, individuals that still owe that amount of money are going to be in deep trouble. So for example, if you haven't paid your rent for the last 6 months, and then you went to a concert, you bought yourself a Peloton bike, I love Peloton bikes, bought yourself a home gym, etc., thinking that, hey, I'll figure out what to do with that money later, or Congress is going to extend this or pass another moratorium, they are in deep trouble now, because when rent is going to be due, the landlord is going to come to collect on your rent, and they're going to go ahead, take you to collections, potentially ruin your credit, and you're going to be in a lot of financial burden, especially if you do not save that money aside to pay the money back when necessary. One thing is the banks. Can you imagine how much money the banks have lost out because of forbearance? They are used to having all this money come in from mortgage lending, and they have not been collecting on mortgage for a very long time. So the lobbyists and the banks and the private lenders, etc., they are pushing and heavily pushing for this forbearance to finally end so they could get all of their money back. This money that they collect from you is the money that they invest and earn even more percents on. In fact, the banking system has had such a difficult year, with cryptocurrency being in the trillions, the forbearance period wiping out their mortgages as well as the auto loans. The banks are struggling to obtain money, and although their stocks are doing pretty well, they are still in big trouble because money has not been coming in as it was about 5 to 10 years ago when these problems were not occurring. So the banks are pushing for it. The tenants are potentially in very big trouble with limited options. Landlords have some options but are also in trouble, potentially causing a mass foreclosure in the real estate market due to the fact that they're not going to be able to pay back the banks or pay the higher rates, and the unemployment rate is still quite high. So it's going to be an interesting 1 to 2 months as we see what really happens with the real estate market. Is it going to crash completely? Is it going to continue to grow? Or is the flood of foreclosures on the market, the extreme eviction rates, going to lead to some chaos, which I think actually will happen, and I look forward to seeing how it all goes down. So if you agree with me and you enjoyed this video, or even if you disagree and have something to add, comment below in the comments. I will respond. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to give me a like for this video. I appreciate that as well. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'll catch you guys here in the next video. Peace.